years. From the 1850s, African Americans had reasons to despair. Slavery, discrimination, and segregation against black people was a way of life. Despite the limits, African Americans contributed to every aspect of life in this region, while building rich but separate communities. This is their story. Sam and Jane Harper, who in 1858 were abducted and transported from Missouri to Windsor, Ontario, Canada, by John Brown to gain their freedom. An early entrepreneur in Independence, Missouri, Hiram Young, bought his freedom and operated a large wagon factory for the Santa Fe trade. Quindaro, Kansas, a stop on the Underground Railroad, was founded by Abelard Guthrie. He named the town after his wife, Nancy Quindaro Brown, daughter of Chief Adam Brown of the Wyandotte tribe. Although Missouri remained in the Union, it was a slave state. Before and during the Civil War, Missouri was a part of the war in the West. Many black soldiers fought in Missouri to win freedom for the race. The 1st Kansas Colored Regiment, established in 1862, were the first black soldiers to fight in the Civil War. They named their encampment Fort Africa. First Lieutenant William D. Matthews was a soldier, businessman, and a porter on the Underground Railroad. Born in slavery in 1859 in Louisville, Kentucky, Junius George Groves came to Kansas at the age of 19 as an exoduster. He prospered as a potato farmer and became known as the Potato King of the world. He and his wife, Matilda, built a 20-room mansion featuring the latest comforts of the day: electricity, hot and cold running water, and telephones. Early settlements. 2 decades after the war, African Americans lived in many neighborhoods in Kansas City, Missouri. Black settlements included the Church Hill area, the West Bottoms, East Bottoms, Belvedere and Hicks Hollow, and Steptoe near Westport. By the end of World War I, they moved east of Troost into what became known as the Vine Street Corridor. Institutions of uplift. The 1890s have famously been called the nadir of race relations. Although that characterization is an overstatement, there is no doubt that in many communities, prejudice was prevalent. Some blacks tackled segregation and discrimination with collective action. These groups tapped into the deep historical legacy of collective consciousness and mutual association in the African American communities. They say that what Lincoln and Roosevelt did for us was good. What we do for ourselves should be infinitely better. Betty and Sam of the K.C. Sun, January 18, 1919. Chester and Ada Franklin founded the Kansas City Institutions of Uplift. The 1890s have famously been called the nadir of race relations, although that characterization is an overstatement. There is no doubt that in many communities, prejudice was prevalent. Some blacks tackled segregation and discrimination with collective action. These groups tapped into the deep historical legacy of collective consciousness and mutual association in the African American communities. They say that what Lincoln and Roosevelt did for us was good. What we do for ourselves should be infinitely better. Betty and Sam of the K.C. Sun, January 18, 1919. Chester and Ada Franklin founded the Kansas City Call newspaper. Ada Crockman Franklin became known for her production, Milestones of a Race, which was presented in cities throughout the country. Elizabeth Bruce Krogman established the Florence Home for Colored Girls, providing shelter for single black mothers. The shelter expanded to offer counseling, education, and medical care to impoverished mothers and children. In 1903, the Colored Young Men's Christian Association opened a room on East 12th Street, which served as the beginning of a program to bring a Y to Kansas City. Over the next decade, supporters campaigned for a larger, more permanent facility. James Cruz, Edward Ross, Adam Starnes, Julius Rosenwald, and Felix Payne led a fundraising drive that created the Paseo YMCA. Founded in the 1930s, the Negro Chamber of Commerce met in the Blue Room of the Street Hotel to increase African American employment as well as provide leadership in the black business community. Equally important were fraternal and benevolent societies. The Community Service Urban League opened in the 1920s with the goal to emphasize job creation and enhance the social and economic conditions that black residents faced. Women's groups and sororities challenged the established definition of true womanhood, refined leadership roles, and questioned the complexities of class, race relations, Jim Crow, the rising middle class, and the constructs of gender roles led to the rise of the Women's Club movement. Confronting the distasteful images of black women perpetuated by the white racist male press, the club women fought to elevate black women as a group. Leave the politics out of the matter and think of a cause that is just. Ida M. Becks. The Niles Home owed its origin to Samuel Eason. It provided housing for homeless black children and elderly black women. A white cigar manufacturer, Frank C. Niles, donated the funds. The Florence Crittenton Center provided a home for unwed African American mothers, led by Elizabeth Bruce Krogman. The home received a charter from the Florence Crittenton Mission in 1930. Josephine Salone Yates taught at Lincoln High School. She declined an offer to become lady principal at Tuskegee and was the driving force for the founding of the Kansas City League.